Now, and just initially advise members that devices should be put on mute by pressing FN and then F8 keys. Screens can be viewed by cameras in the room, and the devices should only be used for committee business during the meeting. And just also to mention, when members refer to a specific page number in the pack, they should refer to the page number at the top of the page. Where the submission has been numbered by the witness, the member should also refer to this to avoid confusing the witness. And I would just ask committee members and anyone in the public gallery to ensure that all other electronic devices are switched off. And I would invite members to declare any of this which are relevant to the issues being discussed at today's meeting. Moving on to apologies. Apologies have been received from Michael Copeland and Paula Bradley and Alex Maskey, the chair. Fra McCann will be late as far as I'm aware. So are members aware of any other apologies? So moving on to draft minutes. Just ask members of the content of the draft minutes from the meeting of the 13th of November, or if they wish to make any amendments. And if members are in agreement on the draft minutes, we'll move on. That's okay. Next item is chairperson's business. There is no chairperson's business. And moving on to matters arising. Just note that Mr. Maurice Devaney has replaced Sammy Douglas in the committee, and I'd welcome Maurice to the committee. And also, if I could suggest to members writing to Sammy to thank him for his contribution to the committee. Members are in agreement. Also note that following today's meeting, the committee will convene in closed session to discuss its work programme moving into the new year. And I would also ask members to note that representatives from Community Development and Health Network will be attending to observe today's meeting. The representatives are all community and voluntary workers who are engaged in addressing health inequalities within their communities. They will then be in room 106 from 11:30 to 12 and have invited members to drop in during this time to meet with the group. It is likely that the strategic planning session will be ongoing at this time, but pending this, members may want to meet with the group. I'd also ask members to note that at last week's meeting, the committee agreed that due to the committee's current workload and impending Christmas recess, that the committee may wish to seek an extension to the committee stage of the pensions bill, allowing for adequate consultation on and consideration of the bill. The intention is to complete consideration of the bill within the 30 working day period, but an extension gives the committee some leeway if there is slippage in the schedule. In order to scrutinise the bill in the 30-day period, the committee would have to meet on another day, for example a Tuesday, beginning next week, and engage with the department and stakeholders at an early stage. I would suggest that this meeting be held from 9 to 12:30 on the next 3 Tuesdays in room 30, and will be made up of briefings by the department and stakeholders as availability permits. So I would ask members to consider that, and if possible get an agreement on an additional meeting day to deal solely with the pensions bill. So
it's good.
Well, it's quite a detailed, complex bill. So, I'll just also advise members the call for evidence will go into papers if Tuesday is agreed, and responses collated in due course. And again, ask if members are content for this. I think Mr. Allister mentioned it in the Assembly the other day. Just to remind members that a previous pensions bill elicited only 3 responses. In order, therefore, to target stakeholders more effectively, the committee may wish to consider contacting directly those organisations that responded to the department's consultation on the bill and inviting them to give evidence on the bill, written and/or oral. This is on the assumption that those organisations that responded to the department are the organisations most likely to respond to the committee in this bill. This would allow evidence to be taken in parallel with the call for evidence, and if no further evidence is forthcoming from stakeholders, allow the committee to complete evidence sessions before Christmas recess. So again,
why is the suggestion for 9 AM on a Tuesday morning rather than 2 to 5 on a Thursday?
Chair, it could be 2 to 5 on Thursday if members so wish. The difficulty is that on the 4th of December, the committee's taking evidence on its inquiry. On the 11th, we had discussed with the Department the possibility of the Minister coming up, although that's yet to be confirmed. It's frankly just to, if I could maybe explain it a little bit more depth, the 30 working day period ends on the 20th of January. That would leave the committee, not including today, with 3 meetings before Christmas and the 2 meetings after Christmas. The meeting before the last meeting before the end of the 30 working day period would be the 15th of January. The committee's meeting on the 27th of November next week to discuss its a review of evidence, which I'm also assuming is going to take a little while. So it's really just to factor in, and it's an additional day. The suggestion was an additional day may be preferable for the 2 to 5. But members have the option, obviously, Chair, of longer day on a Thursday to deal with the pensions bill, or an additional day. The 9 o'clock to 12:30, if I could just refer to that. The 9 o'clock start is simply because on a Tuesday we can only get a room up until 12:30. So asking members to come for the 10 and then have a briefing on what is quite a detailed bill, I was just factoring in an extra hour to get through it in time.
Chair, I have a difficulty some Thursday afternoon, say, if committees of policing board.
Greg, you think you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I've had a difficulty on Thursday as well, let alone a 9 o'clock start on the, all right, for Belfast based or people within a sort of 20 or 30 mile radius. But it's exceptionally difficult to get here through all the reams of traffic in a normal working day. But I think, Chairman, I mean, you know, this pensions bill, like a series of other things, are going to be shoehorned partly as a result of our concentration on the inquiry bills. And that is what has happened over the course of the last year and a half, and is going to continue to happen unless we come to a conclusion. I'm easy either way, but I think, you know, we've got to make our mind up in terms of looking at this logistically over the course of the next few months and beyond.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the logistics is trying to get the inquiry finished as soon as possible, because there is, I mean, obviously the committee has a heavy workload anyhow, and with the pensions bill, which is complex and far-reaching in terms of its consequences, then I think it's something that we need to concentrate on.
Thanks, Ad. Chair, maybe rather than, perhaps it may be worthwhile, rather than the committee decide on the pensions bill now, perhaps if the committee when I explain the additional legislation that's coming that we expect from the department in the planning session, which I would hope to curtail a bit, members might have a better overall view of just where the pension bill sits in relation to both the inquiry and other legislation that the committee will have to deal with very early in the new year, and maybe in a better sort of frame of mind to determine whether an additional day is appropriate for the pensions bill, and therefore and then the only decision will be whether what day is best suits members.
I think, in fairness, Sammy wasn't here when he asked people to switch off their electronic.
I thought it was switched off, Chairman.
I don't think it would have made any difference, Chairman.
No, obviously Kevin's going to be dealing with the other stuff at the end of this meeting in terms of strategic plan and stuff, so if members are content, we can maybe deal with the detail around the pension bill then. That's okay. Thank you. Moving on, just asking members are content to lay a motion with the business officer. Sorry, right. Sorry, was about the extension of the 30-day period, so we'll be dealing with that later. Next on the agenda is the Social Security Agency Claimant Satisfaction Survey. It's a briefing by the Social Security Agency. The following officials are here to brief the committee: Lisa Hamilton Sturdy and Shirley O'Goose. Right, sorry, just checking. Thank you. So this Briefing was originally scheduled for the 2nd of October, but was rescheduled because other briefings at that meeting overran. There is a copy of the survey included at page 42 of members' packs. I just ask the officials to come forward and brief the committee. Thanks very much for coming.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to attend the committee. I am here today to provide members with an overview of the results from our claimant satisfaction survey, which was carried out between September and November 2013, to evaluate the satisfaction levels of working age claimants with the services being delivered by the Social Security Agency. The survey was also designed to provide an understanding of any key issues that occur throughout a claimant's journey with the agency. We are committed to delivering quality services, and measuring customer satisfaction is a critical component of improving our services. The survey, which is part of a wider programme of claimant insight activity, was designed to better understand the needs of claimants and inform the agency's ongoing continuous improvement. Other areas of work include the review of the agency's customer charters and the development of a comprehensive set of key performance indicators that will be used to routinely measure customer satisfaction. The survey population that we spoke to was claimants in receipt of the main working age benefits, i.e. Job Seekers Allowance, Employment Support Allowance, Income Support and Disability Living Allowance. The sample of claimants surveyed included a mixture of both claimants who had made contact with the agency between March and August 2013 and claimants who had started a new benefit claim between May and October 2013. In total, we surveyed 1,684 claimants. The results of the survey were extremely positive, with the majority of claimants, 84%, stating that they were either satisfied or very satisfied with agency services. Generally, income support and job seeker allowance claimants had more positive experiences dealing with the SSA than their disability living allowance and employment and support allowance counterparts, and they were more likely to report that the SSA services were easily accessed. Claimants on disability benefits, employment support allowance and disability living allowance were less comfortable when dealing with agency staff. The majority of respondents held favourable opinions on the professionalism of staff. 9 in 10, 90%, thought staff members were friendly, polite and treated them with fairness. More than 85% of respondents also credited staff with other positive attributes, such as being helpful, listening to what they had to say and treating them with respect. The survey also asked about the need for improvement to service delivery, and 35% of all respondents believed that the service required little improvement. 11% believed it needed a great deal of improvement, and 54% said no improvement was needed. Suggested areas for improvement included a better telephony service and better information on a claimant's entitlement. Improving the agency's telephony service is a priority for us, and work is ongoing to improve our service levels. And through our Improving Benefit Uptake programme, we are actively promoting claimants to take up their full entitlement to what they are entitled to through benefits. Given the digital agenda and the increasing delivery of online services, the survey also included questions relating to future communication channels. Over a third of respondents indicated that they would be happy to access our services in future by email, 36%, or online, 38%. Younger claimants and job seeker allowance claimants were more receptive to using digital channels to interact with the agency. Contacting the Social Security Agency in person was still valued by many claimants, who reported that it allowed quicker and improved outcomes. These results confirm the need to ensure that claimants are fully prepared for any increase in digital services, and we are working with partners to prepare claimants to use digital services going forward. Whilst the results from the survey are extremely positive, demonstrating the commitment of staff to delivering a quality service to our customers, the survey has identified opportunities for improvement. The feedback from claimants is being used to inform ongoing improvement activity across the agency. As the survey was limited to working age claimants, and in order to gain a full understanding of satisfaction levels for all claimants, a further telephone survey is being planned for early 2015 to gauge the satisfaction levels of pensioners. I hope that members have found what I have said and my briefing useful. You have the packs and a copy of our briefing, and my colleague Shirley and I are both available to answer questions that you might have.
Thanks very much for that. I just have a few questions before I bring members in. I think we received 1,684 responses, and a large percentage of those people surveyed are satisfied with the current service. Statistics from August 2009 would indicate there's 230,000 people of working age that were claiming social welfare benefits. So so the 1,684 represents about 24%. So would you be happy with that kind of proportion of people surveyed as being representative of the overall numbers of people claiming?
Yes, Deputy Chair, we use statisticians within the department to inform us of what the most effective sample size would be, and in this instance I am content that that is statistically viable.
It's not 24%, Chairman. It's not 24.
The decimal in the wrong place.
Yeah.
There's 24% of the claimants that were successfully contacted.
There were a number of. It wasn't 24% of 230,000. I know my maths aren't great, never were, but it was 24% of the people contacted. Maybe just to clarify that. Which
Sorry,
wasn't.
explain that. So only 1 in 4 agreed to the survey?
Would that be
No, we picked a sample size of the amount that we would speak to.
right?
And was that 1,684?
1,680, 34.
Yeah.
Yeah, 84, sorry.
So where does the 24% come in?
Sure.
The sample was quite a large sample, so there was over there was 6,000 initially contacted, and of that, then 1,600 were
So
actually
24% of the number contacted.
and then it was an oversampling to get a response rate of 20%. And we actually got a response rate of 24%.
Were the 6,000 chosen at random? How did you choose the 6,000?
It's for claimants that were either that had recently contacted the agency within 6 months. That's how the sample was, and then it was into 2. So it was people that had ongoing benefit, or someone that has recently started claiming a new benefit. So those were the 2. So it wasn't all claimants within Social Security Agency. It was for people that have been in contact in 6 months, so that we could research their customer journey, because we thought they would have a better recall of how that went through.
It wasn't random at all.
The sample was taken, and then it was a random section within
Within that,
The
yes.
original base wasn't.
The original base, no, but we felt it important that those claimants would be able to recollect clearly that their last engagement with the agency.
Could I just ask a couple more questions before I bring Gregory in? Obviously, there was some dissatisfaction expressed with the length of time that staff were able to spend with clients, and obviously staff are under pressure. And in the current climate, do you think it's possible that more staff can be employed, or is it a matter of redistributing existing staff to deal with particular issues? Because one of the things I've said is younger people particularly are happy to access online, but I deal with benefit claimants on a daily basis, and the majority of people here, older people particularly, are happier with the face-to-face interview, which involves staff spending time with people. And you mentioned about DLA, ESA and another benefit, and those are benefits that are centralised rather than people being able to access their local office. So that would seem to be an issue as well.
Well, what we would like to do as we modernise our services going forward is take the digital agenda, the telephony service, and the fact that there are older customers who would like to be seen face to face. All of these results in the middle and make sure that each claimant is getting the service that they would like from the agency. So as we modernise our services, these results will be, and ongoing results, will be integral in how we design our services to make sure that each claimant is getting the service tailored to them.
You know, I understand that one of the issues that I would come across regularly, a lot of benefit claimants use pay-as-you-go mobiles now because it's cheaper than having a rental. Even if you don't use your house phone in the house, you're still paying for it. So people are charged, and in some cases it can cost quite a lot even just to get the minimum information. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed and looked at.
And that is something that we're looking at as we examine our telephony services. And in fact, we have introduced some 0300 numbers so that when you dial in, you will be advised that it would be more cost effective to dial back and use 0300.
There's also the issue about access to broadband, particularly in rural areas, and that's something that needs to be looked at. Gregory, sorry.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is a very interesting survey, but just a couple of things. See on page 65, tables 3 and 4, overall satisfaction levels with agency services, and then overall satisfaction levels with how agency handle queries. What's the distinction? Is the first one just a series of questions just on overall services to the agency, and the second one is what? Is it an elaboration on the first, or what's the distinction between the two? Because the results are broadly similar in both.
Overall satisfaction levels with SSA services by benefit group, overall satisfaction with how SSA handle queries by...
Yeah, the first one is a general broad brush, how satisfied are you, and the second one, member, is how your query was handled. Right. Now, obviously, we did this survey in 2013, as I mentioned, and if we are going to progress with this type of continuous customer improvement, what I would like to see happening is that we start to filter some of those results and get into the detail behind because, as you say, that is they are similar questions.
Yeah. And the results are very
similar. So as we sort of develop our customer insight within the agency, I would like to see us streamlining some of those and drilling down, filtering on the detail.
Right. And then on down on the same page, just there's a breakdown by age, and you start to see a bit of a disparity coming in there where it appears, anyway, on the face of it, looking at that sort of the colour graph, the sort of purple colour to the left is the satisfaction levels, and it seems to rise sort of exponentially with age. So the older people are more satisfied, younger people are less satisfied. Is that right?
It's quite interesting. I mean, you could add personal opinion or anecdotal evidence to that. But again, I would like to see some harder research done on that. You could argue that depending on the type of benefit you're claiming, you might be more satisfied or have a more comfortable experience, just depending on the benefit that you're claiming.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. Would it be the case then that once you drill down, you might find that the benefits that are being accessed by older age groups are less likely to be susceptible to complaint? Mm-hmm.
What I would like to see in our pensioners survey in early 2015 is some explanation behind that. I would tend personally to agree with you, but wouldn't want to set that in stone until we had the evidence to back it up. But I would like to think that our survey in early 2015 will give that more colour.
Okay.
Sammy.
Yeah. Can I just I take it that table 10 on page 69 is really the views expressed by that 10, 11, 12% of people who were dissatisfied with the service that they got.
Table 10, overall information provided.
Sorry, 10A, sorry, on page 69, sorry. I think that was really responses from people who were dissatisfied, that kind of 10, 11, 12%.
Yes,
The one thing that strikes me about that, and I'm sure a number of us in our constituency capacities have found this, is that if you look at the first three on that, how much benefit I would receive, which benefit to apply for, and how to apply for benefits. For people to go into a benefit office and to find that there are staff who can't give them that information, is that not, even though it's we're only talking about 11% of the people who responded to your survey, is that not a worrying feature for you?
As you said, it is the 11% member. It is something that we are concentrating on very heavily, the availability of customer information, the training of staff, online information, what's there for claimants. So to say we're aware of it, it is just the 11%. It's part of how we will continue to design our services so that as we go forward we'll be able to see a marked improvement on that type of percentage.
But, you know, whether it's just the 11% or not, to have people in the front line who don't know which benefits, I come in and they can't actually tell me, well, that's the benefit you should be applying for, or can't use the calculator to say that's how much you should expect to get from your benefit, or here's how you apply. I mean, a third of those people who were dissatisfied said, I assume that, you know, the responses are truthful, that the people who were advising them couldn't actually tell them how to apply for the benefit.
Well, you could read that. You could read many things into it. If it was what you're saying it is, you're absolutely correct. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for one customer to feel like that. Never mind 10 customers, 30 customers, 50 customers. So as I say, this type of information allows us to then go out and target where the problem areas are, what's happening, why is that happening, how are we going to fix it. I mean, the reason that we're collecting this sort of information is not to say, great, everything's rosy and we don't have any work to do. It's so that we can make sure we can pinpoint those claimants, find out where it's happening and fix it.
Well, can I just ask one last question then on that? Because I assume, I mean, while this may have come up in the survey, I'm fairly sure, and I can think of examples from my own office, I'm fairly sure that these kinds of complaints are received by the Social Security Agency on a weekly basis, where somebody goes in and says, look, I couldn't even, the person who talked to me couldn't even tell me what benefit I should apply for or how to apply for it or whatever. What happens in a situation like that where a member of staff is seen either to be uncooperative or unable to cooperate? What's the procedure within the Social Security Agency?
Basically, the complaint would be investigated. What has happened would be run through with the business area in question. If there was an identified training need for a member of staff or a group of staff, that would be noticed and carried out. But part of our programme of continuous improvement going forward with this piece of customer insight is to start gathering other pieces of customer evidence, plus bringing those complaints into a sort of central pot of here's what we know about how our customers feel, where is this happening and how can we fix it. So whether it's by an improved telephony service, improved customer information, or speaking to an individual member of staff or business area and finding out whether there's a training need or whether we need to work with anybody else to amend that issue.
Yeah, Chairman, just going to make an observation at the end here. If you extrapolate from those figures and look at the total number of claimants, I mean, you'd be talking about 8,000 people in any 1 year who could find themselves in that particular situation. You know, just working back from, because you've said you took a sample from the new claimants, 6,000, but if there's over 230,000 of them, you know, that can be quite a sizable number of people, and I do think that there maybe are problems with some of the staff, whether it's new staff coming in not properly trained, or some staff who maybe whatever reasons, aren't as clued in?
I would be inclined, member, and thank you for your point, I would be inclined not to just necessarily think that it's staff. It could be customer information, it could be the quality of the telephone call, it could be the quality of an online service. So I'm cautious about solely saying staff because our research hasn't told us that. I very much take your comments on board. I'm pleased with this as a baseline survey. I'm pleased with the level of information it has given us. However, there are hotspots and areas to fix, and we are very aware of that, and will continue to build on this by pulling it all together in a pot and working out how we deliver or design the service to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, I also accept, and I should have made that point, that if you've got a satisfied customer, it's not always because the people who've been serving them have been at fault. Sometimes the customer themselves can be at fault, but I don't think you can gloss over it either and say that, you know, there's not an issue there.
No, absolutely.
Just before I take Stuart, I would make a point. There's always been a problem in the sense that you have Job Seekers Alliance staff who know about Job Seekers Alliance, you have ESA staff who know about ESA, whereas people in income support had a much better overview of all the benefits because they all kind of filtered into that. And really, I shouldn't complain too much because it kept me in a job for nearly 30 years. So I just wanted to make that point as an advice worker. But, you know, there is difficulty because particularly now in my own area, South Region, where you have Lurgan now dealing with income support, you have Newry dealing with job seekers. So even that knowledge of those particular benefits has been kind of split up, and Portadown's now dealing, I think, with insurance numbers and that kind of thing. So that hasn't helped in a sense, because staff tend to concentrate on the particular benefit that they're dealing with, like with pension credit and dairy and whatever. So, you know, there is an inherent difficulty there because people don't necessarily need or want to know about the full range of benefits, and that is an ongoing problem.
And member, if you, Chair, if you would like me to respond to that, I would like to see more readily available customer information, not just to rely on printed materials and online materials, but just to add to the suite of what's available to a claimant, so that they're not just relying on one staff member giving them everything they need to know, so that there's somewhere online that they can visit and find out easily about their benefit, or indeed go into a jobs and benefits office and be able to pick up a pamphlet that's going to explain clearly what's available and what they need to do.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I appreciate all the presentation so far and the work that has gone into this survey. Can I ask you, in looking away from the customer focus and how it's affected claimants, the results of this survey, how have they been fed back to staff, and how will staff, what opportunities do staff have to say they recognise them or they don't recognise the issues that have been raised, and those issues that are recognised, how will you then deal to resolve those in the future and take on board staff ideas?
Thank you, member. We have a very innovative internal communications function within the agency, which we started about a year ago. That function is called Rising to the Challenge, and it's about rising to the challenge of delivering a quality service to all our claimants, but also for each other as colleagues. As part of that internal communications programme, we regularly communicate with all our staff because we're such a dispersed workforce and we are all over the country. It's important that we have a variety of tools. So with the claimant satisfaction survey results, we were waiting until we presented to the committee today. And on Monday, a suite of materials will go out to our staff, including the survey results, articles, posters for staff areas and leaflets. Our internal communications within the agency is two-way. There's always an invitation for staff to come back and say, what area did this happen in? Is there something in particular that I could find out about this? That's all taken into a central pod, as I mentioned before, and into our customer insight function. So if there's something that a staff member raises that we haven't thought about or that might be useful to add to our next customer insight programme, we will. But the claimant satisfaction survey results will also be looked at per business area and given to the head of business in those areas, so that if there are any red flags or hotspots, we're able to deal with those effectively. So it's kind of done at a micro level and a macro level. And staff will be made fully aware of the fact that we have been here today, and where they can get copies of the full results.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Dolores?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. It was just you said about hot spots and areas that need fixed. How are you going to do that, and when?
Well, we are planning our business for next year, and as part of that, we're planning our customer insight work programme. So, as I said, this was very much a baseline survey, and we hadn't really collected this level of information recently. What I would like to do with that now is to find out some more of the more detailed information. And those results will be used at a senior management level to feed into the other projects, such as telephony services, customer information, the different projects that run across the agency, to make sure that if there are any key bits of information that project board needs to know, they have it. So it's on really, remember, a continuous basis, but it's something that is top priority for us at the moment.
Can I just ask, Chair, further to that, how does the identification of some of the hotspots relate to complaints lodged perhaps against individual officers?
We are beginning to look, remember, at our continuous improvement generally, and as I said, this is quite a fresh survey for us. And what we would like to do is centralise the results from this, plus customer complaints, and bring it all together into that rounder area so that they can be more easily interpreted, and we can recognise trends as we go forward. So, in answer to your question, we're centralising the information so that we can see straight across what's happening.
I'm just surprised, Chair, that that wasn't done before, I'd have to say, but I do welcome.
Oh no, absolutely. We would have, obviously we were always looking at customer satisfaction levels, but over the last 2 years, it's been something that we're really starting to very much focus on and understand how our claimants feel.
Chair, it's just, I'm sure like many others here, have a lot of vulnerable, particularly young people coming through our doors who have difficulty, I think, with literacy in particular.
That's always been a problem.
Yeah, and quite often I would have to send a member of staff down in order for, sometimes for them to be treated with respect. So I would hope that some of the complaints are rigorously investigated and assessed. I do take the point that if people don't like being told they're not getting it, but nonetheless, I think there's ways of telling people.
Before I take Sammy back in, Mr. Ellis, I'll just make the point, I've been dealing with social security staff for a long time, and I have to say the vast majority
absolutely
are fine, and they do work under pressure, and they're human. So, and they're dealing with complex issues, so I think it's worth making that point. Sammy?
Yeah, one of the tables which perhaps shows the biggest level of dissatisfaction, if you want, was table 19 on the level of complexity, where on whether it was a new claim or a change of circumstances or just signing on or a funding request, eligibility, regularly about a third of the people who were surveyed indicated that it was either very complicated or complicated. Did you dig in any deeper in that as to why they took that view, and also, if you did, what kind of recommendations are there for trying to deal with that?
Remember, we haven't dug down into the detail of that, and that is a key area that obviously is important, and that's something that we will take forward. It's difficult to tell whether level of complexity refers to it was complex for the claimant or the process itself was complex and the information wasn't there to support it or make it simpler, or that claimant or person didn't have had a particularly complex case and was taken on a level of steps So I would like to drill down on that to find out what level of the customer journey was so complex and why. So that is something that we would...
It's just that, since regularly a third of the people, regardless of the circumstances, were saying that, look, that was one of the issues. I think it would be useful to know why they found it complicated.
Take that on board, member. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
You talk about these hotspots, where are they?
When I say hotspots, member, I was referring to the fact that claimants had asked for an improved telephony service or improved customer information. So when I say hotspots, I'm not referring to local
I understand that.
areas per se, but suggested areas for improvement where the telephony service and the availability of customer information, both printed and online.
When, for example, going back to Table 10A, those who are unhappy, and 40%, for example, said that they'd been wrongly advised about which benefit to apply for. Have you any way in this survey of proofing the complaint against the staff member involved?
Obviously, member, we like to protect the identification of people who respond, because I think many claimants might be, for want of a better expression, put off if we asked for all of their details when they were completing the survey. So in a very isolated one-off incident with a member of staff, the answer is no. However, I would like to look at ways of, as I say, this is our sort of, our baseline claimant satisfaction survey. And as we move forward, I would like to look at ways of identifying a particular business area or region, so that, okay, we don't know that particular claimant was in Newry Jobs and Benefits, or we don't know that particular claimant was claiming X with till number person 6 in Newry Jobs and Benefits Office, but we know it happened in Jobs and Benefits Office in May 2013, for example. So at the moment, this is very much a sort of overview picture.
But you have no way of identifying whether a particular member of staff, for example, is the subject of multiple complaint?
Well, if that was the case, member, I would like to think that if a member of staff was having multiple complaints, we would be aware of them in the Jobs and Benefits Office, because we would have received a number of letters or phone calls on that individual.
That's the complaint service, but from this survey, you've no way of identifying whether there are particular staff who are generating more complaints than others.
No, member, but I would like to think that I could rely on our customer complaints process to give us that type of information.
And those, the 1,600 surveyed, are they anonymous or are they?
Well, in the agency, we would never receive their information. Our statisticians at some point will have their Section 75 information and that type, but in the agency, in our customer insight team, we would not be aware, because it's data protected.
Yeah. So if you wanted to pursue a particular issue that arose in the survey, you couldn't do that because you don't know who to go back to get more information?
Not for one-off incidents, member, but with this particular survey, it's very much a general overview aerial picture of what is going on within claimant satisfaction. And as we design our customer insight programme going forward, I would like to be in a position where we could start to drill down and get some of that information. However, I would like to reinforce that our complaints process is one that if there's a problem with a particular member of staff, that would be able to deal with that.
So how do you verify the accuracy of what's on the survey form?
The accuracy of the information that people are giving? Well, I suppose with any survey, you're always relying on, we have departmental statisticians, as you may be aware, and with any
survey respondents, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector, you're always relying on an element of honesty and truth, and really.
But you're totally reliant on it.
Oh, you're absolutely reliant on it. But I would believe that if somebody had taken the time to fill out a survey, we have to take what is given to us at face value from a group of claimants.
The reason that we surveyed 1,600 is that becomes statistically valid, because if a certain amount aren't telling the truth, you have 1,600, so that's where the trend comes out. So that's why it becomes that your confidence in the information that's being delivered, you can be relatively assured that this is what an oversight, a snapshot of customer or claimant satisfaction.
And sorry, Shirley, and that's why I remember when there is a particular isolated incident, we would be more inclined to rely on our customer complaints process, because obviously if there's you would want the one-off incident type issues to show up in other places in day-to-day business, as opposed to an overall satisfaction survey.
Okay.
But your database, because just to follow on Jim's point, your database of the respondents, I mean, it's so totally anonymous that they could come from anywhere in Northern Ireland. The survey wouldn't show that, X number came from Belfast, so therefore, while you might not be able to identify an individual or maybe even an office, if you were picking up that, most of those responses about not being given the right information were coming from the people who responded from Belfast. You can't pick that up from the your database of responses, no?
No, member, not at the moment. It's broken down by benefit type. But to be honest, I think that the customer information needs improved across the piece. Generally, our materials available to customers do need improved, whether they're in Belfast or Newry. And as this was the sort of first bird's eye view survey of this kind, it had to be general like that, just to give us a sort of broad overview before we start to say, okay, what's coming through. And part of us engaging with members here today is by pulling out some of those areas that you face with your constituents on a daily basis, so that we take all of this into account when we go forward designing our new work programme.
You think it would because the point Jim made is quite an important one. Do you think it would compromise the survey or put people off responding to the survey if you were to ask one question about the benefit office that they were dealing with, or the benefit offices they were dealing with?
Remember, I don't think that it would compromise the integrity of it at all if we asked, and I agree with you that the point that the member asked was very relevant. I don't think it would compromise the integrity to say that they were in the Greater Belfast area or the Larne area or whatever, but I would very much want, before I did that in the next, I would want to just take the opinion of our departmental statisticians just to absolutely ensure.
And could you not have a tick box of whether they were willing to be contacted or not?
Yes, we could, but if we were, that may not be compliant with our data protection. I would need to look into the type of how the survey was being delivered to the individual, whether it was face-to-face, whether it was by telephone, whether it was, and find out how we could do that to ensure that we don't put the claimant off. Because if I'm putting down my date of birth, where I live, my name, I might be afraid that it could affect my chances of getting benefit.
The point is, if they tick the box saying, I'm willing to be contacted for further perusal of these matters, it's at that point they would then give their
I'll just check with my colleague. Am I right in saying that in some cases we don't even ask name, address,
have that on the form?
Yeah, I suppose they'd have to give some source.
You could ask. In this instance, we didn't ask, but that is something that we could look at for future surveys. That if a claimant wanted to be contacted again to discuss further issues, that we could do that.
They'd have to give you a contact means.
They would have to give permission, and it may, if someone I think in any survey for any organisation, if you were given a negative feedback, there may be an anxiousness about saying, yes, you can contact me again, not necessarily because of Social Security Agency, but I think any organisation, there's even for restaurants, there is always a bit of a anxiousness that I'm given a negative opinion, and would that impact me in the future? But that is definitely something that we could consider and speak to the statisticians
Just
about.
before I bring Gregory back in, I mean, as somebody who's worked in the Social Security office, and just to go back to the point that was made about the staff, if you have a member of staff who's a serial offender in terms of mistreating claimants or clients, for want of a better word, that would be picked up very quickly, in my experience, by either other staff or management, because you have people dealing in a fairly tense situation with vulnerable people coming in. So, my experience in working in Belfast and Newry offices was that would be picked up very quickly. I mean, we're all aware there are some people who shouldn't be let near the public. It's as simple as that. That's human nature. And there's people I worked with many years ago, they're better in the back office, to be perfectly honest, because there are personal skills required sometimes in a one-to-one basis, and I think that has improved over the years. Certainly, it has a long way to go, maybe in some cases, but I think it's a point worth making. Gregory.
Yeah, thanks. It was just an issue towards the end there on page 91, figure 14, the one about willingness to use digital channels. The graph, which I think most people would probably expect to see, that with age there's less likelihood. But I just wanted to be clear that the converse is true, because if you look at the extreme end, which is the sort of 45 to 64 age group, that's indicating that only 20% were willing to use digital channels. But does that automatically mean that 80% said, no, I'm unwilling, or was there a variation of other categories? You see the graph says 20%, but is it automatically that all of the rest, the other 80%, were all saying emphatically no?
Do we have the breakdown of questions on that one? Sorry, member, we'll just check the question again to see there's a large number of questions, which is...
Just while you're looking for that, it just strikes me from looking at that, Chairman, that it's not just the very older age group, the sort of 55 plus. I mean, even at 45, which most people wouldn't regard, well,
I'm not sure.
I wouldn't regard as being very old.
No, I wouldn't think 55 plus is very old, Gregory, to be honest with you.
Like that's a 20-year age bracket there, from 45 to 64. And it's consistently showing that only 20% of them in that fairly significant age bracket were willing to use digital channels. So I don't know, is it the case that the 80% said no?
Yes, they were asked, would you be happy to contact the Social Security Agency, and they were asked
So it's just yes or no?
they were saying yes or no.
Well, obviously that means that a very significant number of people, and I know, just logically, as time goes on, I suppose that graph will change over a longer period of time. But you are talking about a very significant number of your claimants who are very traditional and aren't adaptable or prone to be adaptable, at least in the short term.
Absolutely, and it's really important that we don't automatically assume that because of the digital agenda, everybody wants to go online. And that's why it's very important to get this type of information, then to drill down on it, to make sure it's absolutely sure, because some people would rather deal, as we said, face-to-face. People in the survey brought out that some people feel they get a prompter and more effective service. So it's important that when we look at the digital modernisation of our services, we are looking at the digital piece, the telephony piece, and the face-to-face piece, and the services are designed to reflect this, because, as you say, 80% is a large volume of that particular 20-year.
But even at 25, it's still 50% or something.
Yeah, but it may well be that those people don't have access to, because we had an official in, I think it was last year or the year before, who was talking about people claiming online. and the department had done a survey and they got a 75% success rate. But then the question was, you only contacted people online who had access to broadband. So that's, you know, because there's huge numbers out there who don't, particularly in rural areas. I mean, in Belfast and
Compton, some
urban
rural
areas, you know. But I mean, certainly in my own constituency, there's huge swathes of countryside that simply don't have access. You know, so that's something that maybe needs to be addressed as well.
And that's something that we will need to work in line with other departments on, because that's a wider government agenda, as you say, rurally and in cities for the more vulnerable adults who may not have access.
Well, now Daddy and Dard are now engaged in the process of, with BT, I think, of getting broadband available in more areas, and maybe that's something that's going to help in terms of the benefit aspect. Greg, is that you? If no other members have any questions, then I'd like to thank you very much. I know Shirley didn't get saying very much, but thanks for coming. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Just moving on to correspondence. I just ask members to note that members are invited to attend a lecture by the Executive Director of the Irish Council for Social Housing, arranged by Shelter, on the 26th of November at 6 o'clock. It's on page 9 of members' table items. The deadline for replies is tomorrow, so any member wishing to attend should notify committee staff before the end of tomorrow. Also ask members to note that they may find this lecture of interest, given that housing is one of the committee's priorities. And moving on, an email has been received from Unison expressing concern over possible cuts to the Supporting People Fund. So I'd ask members if they're content to schedule a briefing for Unison and an available date in the new year. If members are content. Thank you. Also refer members to correspondence from the Department on page 120 of your packs. The Department have provided the
Can I
committee...
see before you move on from that?
Sure.
See, before that meeting, because I think it's there's two things. It's the potential reduction of the Supporting People's Fund, but also the movement of the Supporting People's Fund to DHSS. And I think it'd be useful if we could get some background as to where that debate lies within the two departments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sit in health as well, and that is one of the up-and-coming issues, because obviously with the advent of transforming your care, that is one of the issues, because obviously if you're intending to keep people in the community, then there has to be infrastructure and support there. So it's a valid point, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, just on the back of that, I think there is a review, as you know, of supporting people. I wonder, could we see a refresh of the terms of reference for the review? Could that be set in advance? Yeah.
Thank you. Refer members to correspondence on the Department, page 120 of your packs. The Department has provided the Committee with clarification of some points raised during the briefing on the Pensions Bill. And just to note that this will be useful in informing the Committee's consideration of the bill. And just ask members if they're content to note the rest of the correspondence as outlined in the correspondence memo on page 99 for packs. Moving on to the Forward Work Programme, and just ask members if they're content with the Forward Work Programme as drafted. It's on page 130 of members' packs. So if members are in agreement, we'll move on. Just ask members if they have any other business. Stuart.
Chair, some time ago we received a presentation from the department with regards to the Empty Homes Initiative. It looks to me, on reflecting back on that they haven't actually met some of their targets, and I think it would be of value if we had officials come back to us. They were supposed to have met targets by March of 2014. It doesn't look as if those targets have now been met. So it would be valuable if we could ask them to come back to the committee and update us in respect of that. There are also empty home strategies in the rest of the United Kingdom, particularly one scheme which is cited as incredibly successful in the Liverpool area.
Yeah.
I know the committee has plans to, at some stage, business permitting, to travel to Manchester, and it would be helpful if we could include an opportunity to meet with the academics and others who are delivering on the empty home strategy in Liverpool.
Yeah, I know that's up for discussion after, because we're doing strategic planning after
Yes.
this meeting, Stuart. So, and I know Minister McCausland had mentioned a
did.
few times about going to Liverpool.
Yeah.
I'd be familiar with Liverpool because I've studied there and I have people, friends who still live there, so I'm familiar with that particular scheme to some degree. So it is, it's a good scheme.
I think if the committee doesn't do anything else, Chair, and there is some criticism that we aren't moving things forward, at least if we took the opportunity to follow through on that aspect, it would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Just ask the committee to note that we may now move into closed session to discuss the committee's strategic work plan for the new year.
This is